way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Rebel Force Radio presents
There is only one way. The way of the Mandalore.
The Mandalorian After Show. After Show.
I have spoken.
Oh yeah, this is the way. This is the way. The stakes are back. The mythology of the series is back. The characters are growing, evolving. They're not just cutting through their enemies like a hot knife through butter. This is the Mandalorian series that I signed up for several years ago, starting with season 1 and the shocking loss of Queel. You knew when that happened that this was going to be a series where our heroes' fates were unknown, and by creating this new world within the Star Wars universe, you were building up hopefully a lot of suspense. And it returned this week. And just so everyone is clear, I did a rewatch. We caught the whole family up today with the last 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. So I did watch the last chapter 22, before watching chapter 23. And I got to tell you, I didn't really put any words into anyone's mouths or any thoughts into their heads unless they were listening to the after show, which they might do because they're right upstairs. And they were all like, what? My wife looked at me. She's like, there was 5 minutes of real episode here? What was the rest of that? That was not what they were saying with the second episode. I don't think that's what any of us were saying. So anyway, so great to be with you here. Mandalorian After Show, Rebel Force Radio. We are back. We've got one more to do after this. But don't worry. We've got Ahsoka around the corner later this summer. And Mac and I have plans to be popping back into the live stream space here and there between then. So we'll get this group back together periodically as we await the next series. But let's bring it home, the penultimate episode of The Mandalorian. And that Mac that I'm referring to is, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mac.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Wow. Wowie, wow, wow. That's my review for this week, because the words have been taken from my mouth. A lot of people were talking online. My buddy Ben Stein, he was saying, a lot of times in Doctor Who, they'll give you the biggest dud of the season right before they give you one of the greatest episodes of all time. Well, I think we're sort of feeling that a little bit this time around with The Mandalorian Season 3. Yes. It all came together, didn't it? It all came together, and not a second of screen time was wasted on anything other than following this plot, following the drama, and taking us up to the cliffhanger ending that's really scratched an itch I felt like needed to be scratched throughout a majority of this season. Yes. Oh, I thought that was Tyler. I thought that was Tyler.
No, Grogu agrees. Grogu agrees.
Thank you, Grogu. I thought I'm like, Tyler's really, he's really throwing his support behind me. My opening comments. I was like,
Tyler, Tyler, say yes for us. Can you give us a yes?
Yes. I can't do it with a robot.
Bang, it's him.
Pretty good.
Yes.
Pretty good,
It's pretty close. It's pretty close. Don't worry. I also have...
No.
Just in case we disagree.
Well, hopefully you won't have to use that too often. This episode of Rebel Force Radio is already gone about a couple minutes longer than Taika Waititi's entire recording session for this episode. Taika, come in. All right. Where's the script? Let me see it. Yes. No.
Yeah. I think that's probably the kind of answers that he was giving Kathleen Kennedy. Are you working on that script?
Yes.
You think we got a movie?
No.
Maybe that's where they got the recording.
That's wonderful. That's
great. Man.
Well, who cares about Taika's movie? We got this episode of The Mandalorian, The Spies, right in front of us. And may I be the first to call it the penultimate episode of season 3. I always like saying that because it's like ultimate, but pen. What is he saying?
I don't know.
Second to last.
It's a big word. It's a big fancy word.
Yeah. Penultimate.
Yeah. Well,
I'll tell you, it was just ultimate. It was the ultimate season thus far.
It was
of
ultimate.
season 3, and it is setting the stage for an explosive conclusion. But I hope we can walk through this episode beat by beat and really break it all down because, wow, it was dense. It was filled with all sort of reveals. There's Swank's notes.
This is the
They're off
notes.
charts.
I mean, beat by beat, I got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got it down. My notes are rather long as well. I keep it all in the digital format.
I like the
Save
paper.
the trees, man.
I
know
like the
you like the
paper. I like to
paper. You
flip.
like shaking the paper. You like giving it one of those.
Yeah. It's the old, radio talk show host thing. Well, let's get into the tail of the tape. Let's talk. I have it on paper. Tail of the tape this week. We are talking about season 3 of The Mandalorian, episode 7, chapter 23, The Spies. Directed by Rick Famuyiwa, and written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni this week. Musical themes, of course, by Ludwig Göransson. Lots of Mando themes this week. I loved it. In fact, it sounded so much like a Ludwig score. But we know that score is Joseph Shirley. So I really appreciated all those themes that returned this week. Original air date for this episode, April 12th, 2023, for those of you listening or watching this in the future, and a fairly long runtime without end credits, a little over 41 minutes, about 41 minutes and 12 seconds. So a meaty episode, and as you said, Jim, I totally agree, not a second was lost or misused, we could say.
Right from the opening segment all the way to the end. The opening segment, beautiful shots of Coruscant. Here we are. I love seeing that. I wonder if it's original prequel visual effects assets. Because at Star Wars Celebration, Doug Chang mentioned in his panel, which is awesome, and I totally recommend everyone watch that. Doug mentioned they're using many original assets from the prequel trilogy. He mentioned that when he was breaking down the Kelvin Beck speeder chase with the gunships flying after him, and Grogu's there. But he mentioned they're using original assets from the film, and also the oxygen of this moment with the you brought up the soundtrack, so I'll give Joseph Shirley props here. But what he was doing with the soundtrack is this like pulsating techno music. But it was very similar to some of the stuff he was doing in some of the soundtrack moments he provided in Book of Boba Fett, which I like that a lot because it fits where we're at. And then of course this probe droid. I mean, come on, descending out of the mist. It's awesome. It's probably the most effective use of probot. Probably since Empire Strikes Back. Let's face it, menacing. In Kenobi, they had the probe droids, but they seemed a little lame. They seemed more like tools than these droids. Feel like they're really menacing and they're going to hunt you down.
Yeah, absolutely, they did, and I think that with that probe droid, it scanned Kane's face. By the way, I think we can officially call her a dirty rat. We know that a dirty rat spy. She is one of the spies that this episode is named after. We'll certainly be talking about who, they used plural, spies. So we'll talk about who the other spies might be. But the episode wasn't called The Spy. I just like to call her TK2755 because that really is who she is.
Really? I call her Amnesty Officer G68. She answers to a lot of different titles. Communications officer, all kind of things you could call her.
Yeah, but certainly, the main event was the return of Moff Gideon, mustacheless, by the way. So maybe when they cart you away for interrogation, the New Republic, they don't like the mustache and they shave it off. Hopefully our own Tyler Page will never be grabbed up by the New Republic We don't want him to look, because he would look very Amish with just the beard if they got rid of the mustache, or maybe it's all facial hair. I don't know.
You don't really have an in-universe explanation for why he took the blade to the face, but just maybe thinking about wearing the helmet.
Well,
Maybe
could be.
maybe it was like tugging. It tugs a little. I don't know.
Oh.
I'll figure out a reason before
He
the show.
definitely looked like a guy who'd been through some things over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
There were some upgrades to his outfit, which were really cool. We'll talk about that later. But the one thing, Jim, that I think we can accurately say about Gideon is he did not count on the Mandalorians coming together. That the seeds of division among the Mandalorian people, while they may have a predisposition for that, because this goes back long before Gideon, their history of fighting with each other, I think he and the Empire and the remnant warlords and all that were helping to stir the pot and keep all of the mysteries going about Mandalore, which, just that alone caused a lot of dissension amongst the ranks of the Mandalorians. You have the sect that, we're on Concordia, the Armorers Covert. You have the ones now that we know as survivors. We have, the ones that left with Bo-Katan. So they have been, I think, working overtime to keep these people fighting amongst themselves, kind of like our own world in some ways, fighting amongst themselves to keep their eyes off what's really going on.
Right. Well, the allegory is clearly about the state of things in the United States of America, with people leaning 50% this way, 50% that way, and a lot of us against them talk. And there's a lesson to be learned in all of this, a cautionary tale. But I just want to talk about how you think that Moff Gideon might be surprised, or could he possibly be dipping his toe into the playbook of the Phantom Menace himself, Palpatine, and playing both ends against the middle and manipulating the whole situation?
Wow.
Could he have a plant among the Mandalorians? I will discuss this further, because I'm thinking about who that other spy might be. And let me just say, just say it. I think the armorer might be a Two-Face. I think.
Well, it was the armorer's idea to get the hell off the planet and take
he's
the
one
injured.
bringing all the Mandalorians into one place, and she's the one who knew exactly where they were and conveniently removed herself from the situation right before the, what hit the fan.
Right.
And also, as she was approaching the ship with the injured people on board, and she's approaching the fleet, she communicates with the fleet, and I think that might have been some sort of tip to the Mandalorians, now's the time to strike, or not the Mandalorians, the Empire, now's the time to strike with the Imperial Commandos, Imperial Mandos, whatever you want to call them. But we'll probably get into that a little bit more as we go on.
Well, before we leave that topic, and Jim, you're kind of blowing my mind a little bit here in a good way. You have pointed out, I have pointed out, and a lot of our listeners have pointed out those horns on the top of Armorer's helmet that make her look like a Mandalorian. And we do know that Dave Filoni loves him some Darth Maul. And, that character looms very large over the Filoni-verse throughout Clone Wars, throughout Rebels. And it wouldn't be surprising. And I would not be adverse to it. I would much rather see Maul show up in something like this, or Maul's legacy. It's not going to be Maul, but Maul's legacy showing up in something like this. This makes more sense than something like Solo, right? At least I feel that way. I feel that it would make more sense. So, could she be in some ways a disciple or a follower of the Mandalorians that are still kind of holding on to this sort of, cult that he sort of built? Possibly.
Oh, yeah. And she, the armor could be working in tandem with Moff Gideon.
Yeah, right.
So there's just tiny tidbits of information throughout this episode that point in the direction of the armor. I believe. A buddy of mine was saying that she's the one who is forging the Beskar for Gideon and those Imperial Mandos, or she's the one who may have left that Beskar evidence at Moff Gideon's when they busted him out of that shuttle. But I don't see how that could be possible because she's always surrounded by all these other children of the watch. She's always off in some isolated area somewhere. So this could be some sort of game plan that's been set in motion a long time ago. And that's how to do it with Star Wars,
yeah,
right?
I think they sort of answered the question about the Beskar. I mean, it was the Dark Troopers that sprung Gideon out, and their armor is Beskar.
Yeah,
it's these guys that we're seeing on the screen right now, their armor is Beskar. So,
you think so?
Blue. Oh yeah,
did they say that?
They say that in the episode as they're firing blasters. They're like, they've got Beskar.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I thought. The only reason I ask is because a lot of them get mowed down, so their Beskar might not be as good as other Beskar. I bet there's a scale of Beskar in strength,
Yeah, there could be.
How strong is your Beskar? Oh, I got the best Beskar.
Some are throwing out the idea, Jim, that it is Bo-Katan that could be the traitor. That seems unlikely to me, but I'm not going to rule anything out if we're playing the game of Clue. One thing we learned is that she already surrendered to the guy once. Part of me was laughing at Gideon at the end when he was asking her for the Darksaber. You will hand over the Darksaber to me. I'm like, of course she's not going to do it. Then I'm like, oh, she already did that once. So who knows? He got lucky one other time.
Whoops. But here he is on screen. A great screen grab Jason is providing us. Moff Gideon at an Imperial base, later revealed to be on Mandalore itself. And he is walking through these laser gates, which remind me of the laser gates we see in the Phantom Menace. In the Duel, the multi-laser gate entry into the Queen's Palace generator room, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I counted the number of gates in the Phantom Menace.
How many?
There were 7 of those.
7 gates. How many gates in this
4.
episode? Only 4. Okay.
4. So
the gates to hell.
I don't know why I did that. I just wanted to see if there was any sort of parallel things going on here. But
you never know.
It would have taken Gideon a longer time to get into that room. Let's just cut to the chase and bring on the Shadow Council.
The Shadow Council, right there. This was a huge reveal, I thought.
Huge.
Yeah, the Shadow Council. You could look at these guys as the new rebels. They're the new rebels. I mean, you think about the questions that they're asking themselves. How soon to reveal their strength?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're dealing with parallel in Andor. How soon to reveal that they're not just unrelated rebel cells, that they're actually unified and it's one big, one big team. We've got the one warlord that says, sorry, that's my mom calling.
Oh, I thought
literally was my mom calling. No.
I thought you cursed and somehow it was edited. No. I'm like, well, it saves me the work.
I'm podcasting, Ma. No, but you. So how soon to reveal their strength? You have the one warlord saying, the galaxy needs to think that they're just, unrelated warlords throughout the galaxy. They talk about Empire loyalists and citizens growing sick of the New Republic's rules and regulations. This is a total inverse of what we see playing out in Andor. And I thought that was fascinating to watch it unfold in different ways.
I love what you're saying. The yin and the yang the situation is pretty cool when you look at the big picture. What I enjoy about this scene is, of course, the introduction of Pelion to live action.
Yes.
We've never seen him before in live action. We know how closely connected he is to Grand Admiral Thrawn. And so I like that he is Thrawn's proxy at this point in time before Thrawn reveals himself, which I predict will happen next week. But beyond all the things you could put into the Wikipedia entry, what I like about this scene is that there's conflict. I've been wanting conflict and drama this whole season in The Mandalorian. You get conflict. I know it's coming from the antagonist, but I just like to see that there's struggle going on here. They're arguing over resources, and Gideon's attempting to assert himself over Pelion and Thrawn, and so I assume there's 10 members of this council. We see 8 of them via hologram, and then you have Moff Gideon. But he also said, the door's open. There's a chair for Thrawn. So you have to assume he's part of their shadow council. Council. Let's get that word out right, Cottonmouth. Council. And I have Warlord trivia.
Okay, well, I was going to say the only two that get a credit are Hux. That's Brendel Hux and Gilad Pelion. So those are the only two. The rest of them are just credited as warlords.
One of them, I thought, the guy who was talking, the bald dude, I thought he would be revealed to be this guy, Warlord Zinj from the old expanded universe. Is that showing up on your screen?
Yes, it is. I see. Yep, I see him. Are you talking about this dude right here?
All right, well, hold on now. Got a lot of moving parts here, Jason. Yeah, that's the guy. Specifically because he was talking about plundering the hyperspace lanes and stuff. And,
yes.
And Zinj was a thorn in the side he was a warlord. He was a thorn in the side of the New Republic in the early days. And he had his ship, the Iron Fist, and that was featured in the X-Wing novels. But he was a guy who had designs on becoming the next emperor. He felt like he was the next in line. And he refused to obey the ruling council, built up his own forces, and sent out agents to recruit other Imperial officers, as well as pirates, mad scientists, and corrupt business partners.
Boy, does that fits the bill for someone like this in this position.
And he had a mustache that was like, with the handlebars and stuff. Fancy boy.
Well, there were some other dudes that, although he probably fits that bill better than any of the other ones. I tried to snag a photo of each one. I do have some photos here. We'll flip through a few of these. We got this dude right here.
Ooh,
he looks like a jolly one.
All right, Curb alert.
Wait a minute.
He was in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, it's coming back to me.
Do you know?
No, I don't, but it's looking really familiar.
All right. The actor's name is Marco Khan, and he is in Curb Your Enthusiasm season 9. The episode is Running with the Bulls. Larry is attending Kenny Funkhauser's funeral, and all of a sudden Marco walks in. He's wearing a fez, and he has his jacket draped over his arm. And Larry sees him and freaks out and starts yelling, "Fatwa, fatwa."
Oh, right.
Because
Larry has the fatwa against him.
Right.
For his Broadway musical.
He thinks the guy has a gun in the coat. And the guy goes, "No." Everybody clears out, mayhem, knock over the casket, everything. And and the guy pulls back his coat and he reveals he has his arm in a sling. And then some funeral attendee comes up to Larry and goes, "That's my friend, you jerk." Hit the music.
There you go.
Womp, womp, womp. Don't play. We'll probably get flagged.
Yeah, no, that's just me. We got this lady here. She ringing any bells?
Okay, hold on. No, she does
Okay.
not ring any bells.
All righty.
Who else we got?
We've got Pelion. The same cat here. We've got
Okay.
Hux. This is a different guy. This guy I thought looks sort of like Bluto from the old Popeye movie.
A little bit. But I don't know who he is.
No, I think that guy.
He could be. Now, one of these guys could be like Admiral Rax from the novels, or I was surprised they weren't slotting in a Ray Sloan into this council. But I think the council will evolve if this concept remains in place and builds through the future of Star Wars streaming and whatever.
Yeah, I
you're
think
leaving out.
I think it has to.
Am
I leaving out somebody?
Yeah, you're leaving out one. She spoke. I think she had.
Oh,
it was the
I know who
first
you're
female
talking
to
about.
speak. Do we have a photo of?
Yeah, right here. This is when
actress?
she says, "Bring on the fembots."
Curb alert! Curb alert!
Oh,
Curb
no.
alert! Actress Jodie Long appeared in Curb Your Enthusiasm season 10 in the episode Side Sitting. She played Larry's doctor and was only featured this one part where she called Larry while he was off seeing some network executive to pitch his show, Young Larry. And he had just come out of the meeting and he was by the elevator bank, whatever you want to call it. And his cell phone rings and it's her. It's his doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that she needs him to come in for some additional tests and stuff. He took some scan and it revealed something. And Larry freaked out. He's like, well, how much time do I have? Yeah, something like, she's like, you just got to come in for another test. Yeah, we're not at the point where we're going to talk about how much longer you're going to live.
I do like that it's always a comedic actor. Every time we find a cameo in The Mandalorian, I guess we wouldn't really call them cameos. These are character actors. These are working actors.
Yeah.
Moving from show to show out in the...
She's been acting since like the late 80s. She's been in so many things, you know. She's like our buddy Rick Fitz. You know, I'm watching Seinfeld the other day. It's like, Rick! It's like crazy.
Oh, right.
But working actor, he goes, he auditions, he gets the gig. He's in a brief scene. Might get a line or two, might not. He moves on to the next thing. So that is Jodie Long. So I imagine we'll be seeing these guys again, and I hope they get a little more fleshed out, get some identities, get some names.
I think they will. I think they will. You know, the one line that really kind of pushed me into this idea of the sort of the inverse of what's going on with in Andor is they talk about using a show of strength. We need to do a show of strength to galvanize essentially the loyalists. They talk about that the galaxy is full of people still loyal to the Empire. And it's like, yeah, they need something like the Aldhani heist. They're wanting to show that the Empire or the remnant Empire is still there. And then you've got others that are saying that they need to keep this a secret. But the big thing, Jim, as you alluded to, you said you think Thrawn will show up in the next episode. That would be great. I don't know. I suppose he might, unless they're saving him for Ahsoka. But he very well could be the glue or the connective tissue between the two series, so you would want that to show up at the end of this series. But this Pelion guy is reminding me of Linus in the pumpkin patch, waiting for the great pumpkin. Like you can tell that he's just been talking about the return of Thrawn forever, and everyone's bored of it. Gideon calls him on his BS. He's like, you know, I'm all over this galaxy. There's no evidence that Thrawn is anywhere around here. And you still got this Pelion that wants to wait for this grand return of the Grand Admiral.
You know, I don't think it's quite a mystery to these guys about Thrawn's existence or his ability to show up. They're just waiting for him to make his big splash. And you know, Thrawn, if you tell him it's time to go, he's going to say, that is not exactly the way I foresee it. And then he'll come up with a big laundry list of reasons why it doesn't work with the plan. He overthinks, he is the ultimate strategy guy. He's and he might be the Phantom Menace after all is said and done here, the Phantom Menace Mandalorian era, the guy who is pulling the strings on everything. And so maybe he's not ready to do it. Oh, somebody typed that like almost immediately as I said it.
What they
great,
say?
Man, who said that? Who said that? I just saw it. Like as I said it,
Thrawn is the new
Hero
Phantom Menace.
cosplay.
Mr. Hero Cosplay Productions.
Yeah. You get the no prize of the show. I'll send it to you. Don't wait by your mailbox because it's a no prize. But I mean, it's a great honor to receive one. And great minds think alike, Mr. Hero Cosplay Productions. That was amazing how that happened. Now I'm going to close the comments so it doesn't distract me so much while I'm trying to make my point. So I think Thrawn is I mean, they might even know where to find him, all of these council members. Who knows? But he's going to make his big return, and they're going to make a big show of it, right?
Yeah,
So,
the way I took it was that Pelion is the guy that is still holding on to the belief that Thrawn is A, still out there, and B, coming back. Gideon wants to move on. The others kind of give little nods about that. I mean, Gideon says, that it's time for new leadership. Where's this Thrawn? He hasn't shown up, and there seems to be some agreement amongst the others. I mean, he obviously has his own plan, no question about that. But at the same time, he sort of portrays himself as, he almost says like, "Oh, I'm a simple man just making my way in the universe." He goes, "Look, all I do is just look after my own territory. That's all I'm doing." And he points at Hux. He's like, "You're the one that's obsessed with cloning." And, Pelion, you're the one that's obsessed with Thrawn. I have no idea. Meanwhile, what we know is that Gideon's gathering up, he's interested in Jedi. He's interested in cloning. He's interested in Mandalorians because he wants to create the ultimate army to seize this power. I did think it was very cool that Hux's project is called Project Necromancer, which... I took a tip from you, Mac. I looked it up. I know what necromancers do. I'm a big X-Files fan, and there were a lot of episodes about necromancers, but it's about reanimating the dead is really what it comes down to.
With magic. We have to be specific about that.
With magic.
It's not a Frankenstein situation here.
Yeah.
It's not like plugging electrodes into some corpse and then flipping the switch. It's alive. There's a more mystical, magical way of doing it. And Hux is the guy, I guess, who's in charge of this operation. We also learn that Hux is obsessed with cloning. That's how he's described by Moff Gideon. Obsessed with clones. So it's not just Moff Gideon who's taking the blood from unwitting patients and unwilling patients and doing experiments. Hey, I thought, doesn't Kylo Ren say something to the son of Hux at the beginning of The Force Awakens? Doesn't he taunt him about a clone army or something?
I don't think so. I just know the mother joke.
No. The Force Awakens.
Oh, in The Force Awakens.
Yeah. Does he? He's on the bridge.
Maybe he
and
does.
He says something
Throw
to
a
Hux.
reference to clones. What do you want?
I'm going to look
clone
that up.
army or
That
something?
suddenly came back to me.
Yeah.
It says, it seems like it's something that Kylo Ren is interested in. He's like pro clones. And the son of Hux doesn't want to go down that road. If I remember the exchange, like the meaning of the exchange. But I'm going to look that up to see what the exact dialogue is.
Well, the chat is reading my mind when Mac brings up magic as part of being instrumental in being a necromancer. Some are saying, the Night Sisters, Force magic, that type of thing. And that could be what finally gets them as far as they get with Palpatine.
Right.
But by the time we meet him in The Rise of Skywalker. But we know that Gideon has his own plan. He's certainly playing Hux and Pelion. We also know that he is sabotaging their efforts. This is clearly indicated by him destroying the mind of Pershing. By destroying the mind of Pershing, he is definitely sabotaging Hux's plan, because Hux's plan relies on Pershing's information, and rather than turn Pershing over, he uses his spy, Kane, to fry his brain so that what they've learned from Pershing stays with them and doesn't go to any of the other warlords, namely Hux.
Right.
So Gideon is so far, if we're keeping score here, he's more of a phantom menace so far than anybody that we've met. So I think your first impression is right. A lot of people are saying, no, it's got to be Thrawn. It's got to be Thrawn. Does it have to be Thrawn? I don't think so. I also like that Gideon asks for all these reinforcements. It's like a hostage negotiation where they're like, I want a helicopter. I want 10 suitcases full of unmarked bills. So Gideon's asking for TIE interceptors, TIE bombers, Praetorian guards. Boy, did my ears perk up when I heard Praetorian guards. That blew me away. I didn't think that Praetorians were even in the universe at this point.
I like the introduction of them. They're a mystery. Praetorian guards. I'm not really up to speed with every page and every entry and every book that's been released since Disney's taken over. But since their introduction in The Last Jedi, I don't think we've received too much information about who the Praetorian guards are. Where do they come from? What's the deal with them? And so I started looking at them. I noticed these Praetorian guards later in the episode, when they finally get revealed, they have T-visors similar to Mandalorians with kind of a line in the middle. And I just started thinking about these guys and thinking about the Bad Batch and thinking about mutant clones and just wondering if these Praetorians, since they're coming from Brendel Hux, are these guys clone creations of his making? What if they take the helmet off and they're all Darth Mauls under there? Jason, you brought up the idea of keeping the whole vibe of Maul alive and going. I mean, imagine a whole bunch of Darth Mauls under there. I know people, guys, I'm stretching and stuff, but why not? Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, I think we're in a world where just about anything is possible. The only clue we got about the Praetorian guards in terms of dialogue is that they sort of used it in conjunction with Gideon fearing for his life. So clearly these guys are the best of the best when it comes to security. And was it Pelion that says, and he, thinks that I'm the one that is over the top, or I forget the exact line that he used, but that there was maybe some pretension. There was maybe some, let's keep it in universe, delusions of grandeur when you started seeking security by the Praetorian guards. So those are the only clues that I got in terms of the dialogue. They are, the Secret Service. They are as high as you can get when it comes to personal security.
Of course, Palpatine had his Red Guards as well, so maybe they're a spin-off of them. Maybe they come from the same place those guys come from. Maybe they go through the same training those guys went through, and they're just called Praetorian Guards now because you can't really call them Imperial Royal Guards with the Empire and the Royal both gone. So,
well, yeah, right.
So we gotta give them a new name. It's just like the First Order. The Empire, long live the. Wait a second now. We don't really have an empire anymore. They flushed us out. What are we gonna do till we get the empire back? We got to come up with a better name.
Right. It's all about branding. You got to make sure that you you get the branding right. And these are some big topics. I mean, we're starting to see the beginnings of the First Order. It obviously is going to come out of these warlords, but which warlord prevails? The smart money would be on Hux. Hux has his lineage still there. He's the one that's ultimately in charge of Project Necromancer, which has some degree of success. So perhaps it's really springing out of him, out of Pelion. I don't know. I think that obviously it's great fodder for conversation. Is who of the warlords can claim the closest, in terms of the birth of the First Order. That's obviously going to be playing out throughout the next several years and probably revealed in that big Filoni film.
Yeah. I just like how they're arguing over resources. And it seems like the pecking order of this Shadow Council, even though they're all appearing in the chamber in front of Gideon, that doesn't put him, we're just seeing his perspective. They're all standing in their own chambers throughout the galaxy.
That's exactly right.
And so they're, just in the same situation. We're just seeing it from his perspective. But it sure seems like Gideon answers to Pelion. It seems like he answers to Hux because he's requesting things from them. He needs what they have. They have more resources than he has.
I kind of look at it like the five families of the mob, there's not necessarily a boss of bosses, but they're looking, he might as well be saying, I want to wet my beak. You've got all these resources, we're supposed to be fighting the same fight.
Yes.
So I guess you could say that there's no formal authority that they have over him, but in terms of the resources that they have and that they wield, that does give them leverage over some of the others. But I do get the sense that there's some, I get the sense that they're kind of equal partners. Of course, they're all thieves and they're all snakes in the grass. So,
right. And there's going to be much more conflict amongst them.
Oh yeah.
But and then of course Hux, I think the whole idea of him trying to call up spirits of the dead, I think that's their way of bringing Palpatine back to life. And maybe their failed efforts are what resulted in Snoke. And they're like, hey, he's good enough. Let's just roll with him. And then the spirit of Palpatine would be like, yeah, you can roll with Snoke. I'll control him. Don't you worry about that. He might be kind of a loose wire from time to time, but if you ever need me, text me and I'll take control of him. And is that your mom calling again?
Yeah, I got to get a message to her. So it's
all right. Yeah, we'll put her, maybe she wants to talk because she has some thoughts on the Shadow Council. Yeah. Like, why aren't you guys talking about the Aftermath novel?
I am putting the
novel.
We do have some folks already. They're very, they're veterans of the after show, so they already know that number. But 708-866-1737 is the number. We'd love to hear from some new voices. We love our tried and true. Don't get me wrong. We'll get to it. But if you're new to the show, give us a call. There's nothing to be afraid of. Give us a call. Throw your theories out. The number 708-866-1737. Jim, we could spend the whole show talking about Gideon and the Shadow Council and all of that, but our heroes also had some big moments here.
Yeah.
And
that was a lot of the Shadow Council, though. That was a lot of meat on the bones before we even saw the Mandalorian title card. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah, we could do a whole after show just speculating on that.
Yes. The conversations will continue.
Of course, there was some great eye candy here. I have to point this out. Anytime you see a big ship coming overhead, of course, that is so iconic in Star Wars, and the droid is freaking out there on Navarro, and he's like, no, Grief Karga, don't you see? Look at the markings underneath the ship, and this beautiful Mythosaur logo on the. That's a lot of paint.
That's badass, my friend. That is so badass.
Great image.
And the visual was awesome. I mean, the sense of scale, the way the ships came in and they landed, of course, then the Mythosaur skull painted on the underside. That's so good, man. Just so good.
Yeah.
So I did rewind a few times to take a second look at this, Why not? Why not? It's something I've always wanted to do at the movie theater for Star Wars films. So I'll just do it in my house.
And I also love, and I always grab these captures of the concept art because I love to see how it transferred from concept to what we see on the screen in the mythosaur on the belly of this cruiser was definitely something that they had planned, and Grief Karga checking it out, and it's just awesome. It's just there's not much to say other than that's awesome. It looks cool.
Yeah. We're geeking out right now, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back to the analysis in just a minute.
But yeah,
give us a second.
Great
to
eye
geek out.
candy. Yeah, it's just great eye candy. But so that is the return of the Mandalorians that Bo-Katan was set out to bring back to Navarro, and bring them back she did. And, this is quite a family reunion that they have here. And just, the way they respond to each other, you've got the children of the watch with their helmets and kind of puffing out their chests in the one moment. And then you've got, all of the great unwashed without their helmets.
Was the music fest in town? Look at all these hippies.
Yeah.
But and the division between the two is really, they really played it up really well throughout this whole episode, as opposed to just talking about it. Now we finally get to see what it's like when these guys, big groups of them, get together and interact. Can they be compatible? That's the question you ask the whole time. And then on a production standpoint, I really love seeing them at this camp because it felt like there were about 100 of them there. And I didn't do a head count or anything, but we've made note of the fact that crowd scenes seem a little tepid in certain, especially on the planet Navarro. I think they did a great job filling up this whole frame with extras.
They did. And were you surprised at how many Mandos were with that fleet? I mean, when we saw them playing touch football in the last episode, we only saw like half a dozen, and there are dozens of them.
Yeah, well, a bunch of them probably stayed inside, playing PS5 or something. I don't know.
So then, of course, we get to the big feast. But the armorer says, it's time for us to get together and break bread and, more or less become one. But before that happens, Grief Karga shows up with a fresh bottle of Romulan ale. And, Romulan ale is not permitted in Federation space. So I was very surprised to see that he had a bottle of it here and turned it over to to Mando. It got Kirk into a lot of trouble with those Klingons in Star Trek's. You're supposed to stop and say, wait a minute, you're
I'm
the
sorry,
wrong franchise.
Picard's been so great that I don't get all bristled and cranky when Trek talk happens in the Star Wars podcast. But
I love
Picard,
it.
he's always like, I have a bottle of this, and he reaches back behind the bar and he's got it. But are we skipping something? Are we skipping the moment? Are we skipping the moment when IG-11 became IG-12?
No, we're not. No, because he brings a gift. He brings the Romulan ale, and then he also invites Mando back.
Oh, okay.
For this, for IG. And man, oh man, I thought this was great because this was literal growth, literal and figurative growth of the character of Grogu. I mean, this provides a lot more opportunity for him to be more mobile and also for him to kind of talk.
Yes. No.
Right? So, of course, the Babu Frik inside, the Anzellan inside was great. I can't get enough of these guys. I might go on record to say they're the best thing to come out of the prequels, or sequels, rather.
Oh, well, definitely Babu Frik, very popular. And when are they going to identify this little guy, this little no squeezies guy? They keep calling him Anzellan. We know it's Babu Frik. Just bust that out. You know it's him. Everyone knows that's Babu.
Is it the same one? Do we think it's the same one?
That's Babu, for crying out loud. I know that little face wherever I'd see it. That's Babu. Yeah.
I got a lot of people in the chat.
Babu up there.
A lot of people in the chat are like, actually, Romulan ale is blue. So, can't actually be that.
Swank's just making a joke, you nerd. All right, look. hey, look, he's got the scarf.
No mustache. There's no mustache on that Babu Frik. This guy
Babu.
Clearly has a mustache.
Yeah, he is an older. He's an older Frik. Like this little Babu, like this younger Frik.
I like that you're keeping this rare merchandise in the package. You certainly.
Well, I felt, when I first got him.
He's a loose collector, by the way, everybody. Mac collects his toys loose.
He was a gift from Babu Frik, Barry Harmon. And I kept him in the box because I didn't feel like he was Star Warsy enough on his own. And he's a little big. He's not really at scale. He's kind of twice the size of Babu. So I keep him in the box just in case he ever revolts against me. And so he's kind of stuck in there. He can't get loose. Yeah, I guess that's not Babu.
This could be
it's not.
This could be his dad.
Bubba Frik.
Bubba.
It's Bubba Frik.
Bubba Frik.
Or Babu Senior.
Just like we have Brendel Hux, we've got Bubba Frik. But yeah, he's great.
What is the relation of the Gleason actor to Domhnall Gleeson? Is his brother or something playing his father?
Yeah, it's because it's Brian Gleason. I don't know what the connection is, but yeah. So I guess
who in the chat knows? Who in the chat knows? We're trying to do a show here. We can't be looking up all this information every time we have a question. We're gonna put you guys to work. Who in the chat knows? What's the relation? Brothers. Jeff Holland says brothers.
Oh, they're brothers. Okay. Thank you very much, Jeff. We can count on you, buddy.
He's my brother. Okay, so and then the other thing is what did Kylo Ren say to the son of Hux in The Force Awakens about clones? It seemed like Kylo Ren was all about a clone army, and Hux was more into the idea of stormtroopers, enlisted men. Or no, they would take babies and raise them. That's right. Again, another parallel. Where you have the First Order stealing babies out of the crib,
right?
To grow them into soldiers,
like Finn,
yeah. And just like the Jedi, took the children that were Force sensitive throughout the galaxy and insisted they come with them to the temple. If I'd be like, no way, man, you can't. You're not taking my son. I don't care how strong in the Force he is. You can't take it. But then that first teenage temper tantrum, no, you can't stay out past midnight. Then they shift to the dark side on you, and the galaxy is in big trouble from that point forward. So I kind of get why the Jedi were collecting those babies. It was just for the best of the galaxy at the end of the day.
It was for the greater good.
It was for the greater good, Jason.
Yeah.
The Jedi are so misunderstood.
And here's the other thing, too. It's sort of like Professor Xavier's School for the Gifted. If those force powers were not controlled, who knows what would spring up amongst all of these crazy kids that have these powers. They need the discipline of the Jedi. They need the doctrine of the Jedi. So...
Right.
There is something to be in it. And I'm sure that as we see this Mangold film that's rumored to be coming, well, it's not rumored to be coming out. It's coming out. I'm so used to saying that. It's rumored to be coming out. No, it's coming out that's going to be talking about the dawn of the Jedi or the first Jedi. We may see what happens when you have these Force users that don't get the right teaching. They don't get the right skills to be able to command their gifts.
Yes. Yes. I have a response from Jeff Holland about the Kylo Ren line in The Force Awakens. He says, Kylo says this in response to Finn going rogue. Kylo Ren says to Hux, they're obviously skilled at committing high treason, talking about the stormtroopers. Perhaps Leader Snoke should consider using a clone army. So that's probably, maybe Kylo Ren was pitching that. Maybe Kylo believed clones would be easier to control. And, the Jedi were generals of the clone army. And so it's that connection to the Force that might make, you successful as a general when it comes to dealing with clones. Maybe clones just don't respond to non-Force users. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along.
You and everybody else. All right. So this was the big moment when Grogu got into IG-12. So IG-12 is a gift from Greef Karga to Mando to better serve the needs of a father looking out for a little one. And the father obviously has a penchant for getting into jams and all kinds of trouble. And that Pram just wasn't quite cutting it. But I think this is an absolutely brilliant move on the part of the writers to give Grogu something like this. Because now all of a sudden, even if it's, the old, I'm going to use another Trek reference, the old Captain Pike, yes, no, beep, beep. It's still better than nothing as far as the audience not knowing exactly what Grogu is saying. So now he has agency because he can say yes, no, and he can also get around. And, this mechanical skeleton plus his Force abilities are really going to make him, I'm not an equal, obviously, with Din Djarin, but certainly less of a concern as they go off on adventures together.
Yes. And a lot of fans, including myself, were kind of complaining that Grogu has been largely shuffled in the background throughout a lot of this season. It feels like he's a prop a lot of times.
Yeah.
A few moments when he really did serve purpose, like when Mando was trapped by that droid arachnid and Grogu was able to go reach out to Bo-Katan and get her into the action. But he's largely just been sort of there. And now he has purpose. This gives him purpose. He can join the action. He can assert himself like he does when Axe Wolves and Paz Vizsla get in that duel. Grogu understands what the mission is here, and it's to unite the Mandalorians. And so he uses his his newfound agency, as you put it so well, Jason. He uses that to play the role of peacekeeper between two guys who are looking to kill each other. Without the IG, he couldn't do that. Maybe he could do the little hand thingy,
Right.
but he couldn't necessarily physically assert himself in the situation and take care of what needs to be taken care of. So I think that is a way of, and now he can join the action too, without being constantly looked over or constantly in danger.
Right. Chaos Man 92 just answered the question that I was about to ask, because I knew when I saw it that somebody on the RFR Mandalorian After Show threw out the idea that Grogu was going to be able to use IG-11 as some sort of device. And Chaos Man 92 says it was Blake.
Wow.
It was Blake. And that's ringing bells to me. And it was Blake.
The most thoughtful of all Star Wars fans, and articulate. I'll put him up there as well. But 11-year-old Blake hitting a home run out of the park. I do recall this. This definitely does ring some bells, and so for that we will be sending Blake an RFR no prize.
So, wow! Congratulations, Blake.
Yes. Free shipping.
That will not be coming in the mail very soon.
Nope.
All right.
Yeah. Be sure to not look for it.
The large land ship with the survivors, I thought that was a very cool concept, and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. And then of course I was thinking about Rex's old fishing boat, that ATTE Walker that they sort of, I mean, it's not the same, obviously it's not the same vehicle, but it did sort of serve a very similar purpose where you had this custom land walker that they were using. This was much more grand. It had sort of a pirate ship sort of vibe.
Yes.
But this idea of them tooling around in this thing that's kind of boat-like in some sense, but on land, I thought that was cool. And I really felt bad for these guys. All they're really, in the credits, they're just listed as survivors, that you have Survivor Scout and you have Survivor Captain. They're never given any names. And these poor souls have been basically just going around Mandalore waiting for someone to show up. They had the faith that Lady Bo was not going to completely abandon them and that someday she would return. At least that's the way I sort of interpreted it, that they were waiting for her to come back and reclaim Mandalore, but she split.
Now, on surface value, I could see that, but like my brain is spinning in a million different directions with these guys being on the planet. As far as their ship goes, it kind of reminds me of Jabba's skiff, his sail barge. Kind of reminds me.
I can see that too.
Just a variant of it. Kind of glides across on the glassy surface this thing does with those skis on the side. And then when I first saw them, also I thought they were the pirates. I thought it was like Vane and his gang.
Me too.
But
Me too.
Their mere presence on the planet is kind of confusing to me. Wouldn't they have noticed the Imperial base? There must have been a lot of traffic going in and out of the planet with TIE interceptors and shuttles dropping off Praetorian guards and those Imperial Mandos flying around. There's just something fishy about those guys. Could these guys also be the spies? Are these plants by the Empire to lure all the Mandos into one place?
You're right, because they are the ones that say, we'll take you there.
Oh, yeah.
Off to the forge, they say.
Yes.
Ooh, now we're starting to suspect everybody.
Right. And I am, maybe I'm a little paranoid, but I just, I like the idea that these guys survived, but I think they would have had some information about the presence of the Empire on the planet. So the Mandalorians wouldn't have been suckers for an ambush like they were.
Yeah, they should have had, yes, because people are saying, well, they were, running around the whole planet. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't build the type of infrastructure that they had underground without a lot of traffic, commotion, and things like that would have gotten their attention. After all, just that landing party got their attention, and that's how they came across Bo and Din and the rest of them. That's a good.
Is that the voice of Lady Bo-Katan? It's like, yeah, you knew it was because you already knew she was there. You knew everything. These guys are all tipped off.
Ooh.
So maybe. I do like them if just on surface value alone. They're survivors. They have this funky ship. They're interesting, and what they do provide that all the other Mandalorians haven't this season, outside of a handful, is that we at least get to know these guys a little bit. They talk, they have dialogue, they share their story. So that's more to be said than everyone else who's part of the Children of the Watch, because we got to know none of them this season. Not a single one, except for Paz Vizsla, but he was already introduced.
And his son.
He got a little bit.
Paz's son, we got to know a little bit.
For what it's worth.
Yeah.
We saw his baptism or whatever, for what it's worth. But these guys, at least you get to know them a little bit, if they are legitimate Mandalorians, which I still am skeptical over, but we'll see how it plays out.
Well, another big reveal is that we now know that Bo-Katan is somewhat responsible for the Night of 1,000 Tears. She's responsible for the final big purge. She says she didn't have a choice, but she negotiated with a terrorist. She negotiated with Gideon. Not that she thought she could trust him. It was more she just didn't believe that she had a choice. It was the only hope she had for saving her home world. What was she to do? She reveals all of that at that somewhat awkward dinner with, because I didn't know how they were going to take it, Jim. I thought they were going to get angry. The way they were sort of building it up as she was telling them that she was the one that walked away and essentially handed the keys. And by keys, I mean the Darksaber over to Gideon. I thought they were going to really throw down. But they didn't. They didn't seem to. And
they just didn't have it in them,
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
And maybe just everybody is more on board with the concept of unity than most realize. Maybe a lot of these people are really down with the idea of bringing all Mandalorians together. I don't know. But what I do know is that Bo finally opened up. We finally got to know a little bit something about her more than just lines of statistics. She was here, she was there, she had the lightsaber, or dark saber, then she didn't have the dark. We never really get to dig under the surface.
We never get in her head at all.
We never ever get in her head except once prior to this, when she was opening up to in the mines of Mandalore. She revealed she took the creed to make her father happy. And, her faith in all that Mandalorian stuff seemed to be a bit shattered. So we get those vibes about her, but she never really talks about anything she's thinking or feeling. With Bo-Katan, and this has been kind of my complaints about her. Some people don't understand why I'm a little critical of the character, but everything for her up until this episode has been like a facade. I don't know. Does she have any relationships? What are her thoughts on seeing the mythosaur? All she did was just tell the armorer she saw the mythosaur, but she didn't say I saw it and I couldn't believe it and I'm never taking his helmet off again. Anything, What does she love? What does she hate? What makes her tick? She's always just there. And I feel like she's the exact same person as she was in the Clone Wars and Rebels, except for there's more of a sense of loss about her, but there's been very little evolution, very little personality. And so I'm really, really happy that they're opening her up a little bit more in this episode. And I want to break down everything she talks about, because she talks about a lot beyond her confession that, as you say, Jason, worked with a terrorist and handed over the Darksaber to him. And then she got betrayed.
Yes.
And what I learned about her, especially when she finally confided stuff to Mando, which is really the only person she opens up to Din, right? I mentioned that conversation she had about taking the creed to please her father. So that tells me one thing about her. She wants to make people happy, she doesn't want to let people down. But we also learn she lacks the confidence that she can do this, that she can see through this mission to keep the Mandalorians together. What is she? Din said it himself. She's honorable. She's loyal. She stays true to herself and her morals. But she's a little gullible, a little naive, because she got burned by the Moff. And thus she lacks confidence in the situation that's unfolding in front of her right now. And to me, this is the first time she's ever really opened up. I like her admitting that she didn't think she can do this. It makes her real. It gives her substance. It makes her more human. And it makes me want to root for her more. And so finally, we get, and then also we get something that's kind of a little treat in this episode, is the Bo-Katan appreciative nod. She does it all the time throughout this episode. Here, maybe I could maybe with the action figure I can show it off a little bit better. She, hold on, let me make the screen a little bit better for me to see it. So there's Bo. Okay, look at the camera, Bo.
All right.
She goes, there it is, the nod. The nod. And that I think is part of her regal past, you know? She was part of the royal family on what?
Well, let's do it now. We got to really.
Mandalore.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, because it was really good and focused there.
So you could play the Bo-Katan drinking game if you like. Every time she does that.
Oh, okay.
You'll be half in the bag midway through this episode. Yeah, the episode will be halfway over, and you'll be half in the bag. So the Bo-Katan drinking game. Try it at home.
I did notice that. I'm having a. Go figure. I'm having a blank. What is Sasha Banks's character's name?
Her name is Mercedes Bernardo. No. Her name is Sasha Banks.
Sasha. All right, I'm glad. Help us out in the chat. Her name is escaping me.
It's coming back to me. Her name is.
He's just waiting for the chat to tell him, and then he's going to go, oh, wait a minute. Tyler has it. Tyler, show it to us. Casca Reeves. Thank you.
Casca Reeves.
You know why I think this one is tough? Because Sasha Banks isn't her real name either. Her real name, I don't know what her real name is. Sasha Banks is her WWE name, and I think that's sort of her stage name. But Casca Reeves, yeah, I like seeing Casca Reeves back. I wish they would give her a little bit more to do. But when you talked about the nod, yeah, that was the nod she gave to Casca Reeves when Casca was one of the ones to volunteer. I'm with you too. All. Oh, there she is. Okay, we got Jimmy Mac action figure puppet theater.
All right.
I love the visual aids. I love it. Okay. The Armorer. Are you good on the whole revelations of Bo at the dinner table? Do you have more on that?
Yeah, I like seeing the vulnerability. I liked knowing what was going on up in her head. I mean, she really doesn't open up very often. Yeah, I like that. And then, you know, being fueled by that when she has that confrontation with Gideon, you know, despite the fact that there's a blast door between them. Kind of reminds me of it. Conventions when people pay $150 to get their picture taken with some Hollywood so-and-so, and there's a big plexiglass divider between them.
Shut the blast door.
It's like, here we are in a salad bar. But so through the blast doors, you know, there was, I felt just like in the whole exchange, just because I'm so fueled on knowing more about what makes Bo tick. Now it's like, the interactions she has with other people feel more substantial to me.
Yeah. There was a monster that appeared. The only shot I was able to really get was its thorny tail. I thought the monster was cool. It's very Mandalorian. They've popped up, multiple times, different monsters. I didn't know that this one, I didn't feel like this was really necessary. I loved it. It was cool. But it didn't really, they had enough traps and surprises along the way. This was just one more. I'm not really complaining about it, I guess, but I don't know what it served other than just a cool action scene. I mean, what it really did was show some of the consequences. I mean, you see these Mandalorians, a lot of them, it seems like, died as they were trying to get away from this thing. Their jetpacks failed. They were falling. There was fire. It was wild. I mean, it was definitely very different from when they were trying to get Navarro clear of all the pirates. That was just like romper room stuff. This was serious. So the stakes were big with this monster. Yeah. But beyond that,
all right, well,
I don't know.
I have things to say about the monster.
All right.
Of course. It was foreshadowed we would get something like this because Bo says that all the bombings on the planet have awoken dormant creatures, right? So you knew you'd see something. But the sheer scale of this thing made me immediately think the mythosaur is making an appearance.
That's what I thought it was going to be. That's exactly what I thought it was going to be.
I thought we were going to the moment where the mythosaur gets tamed by these Mandalorians somehow. And or maybe Bo-Katan would be the one to do it. Who knows? But seeing this thing pop up and then having to fake out, well, it's just some big creature. I love seeing the crazy creatures in Star Wars, and we've seen ginormous beasts. In the concept art, it looks the head kind of reminds me of one of the fish, the giant fish that was underwater in Babu in the Phantom Menace. Is very similar jaw structure and the pointy teeth and stuff. But to know that a creature of this size is prowling around on the planet Mandalore, it tells me one of two things. Either the mythosaur is like ginormous, or this kind of takes the wind out of the sails from the mythosaur when it finally appears. So, like, what's so special about the mythosaur if you got all these crazy guys rocking the planet, you know?
Yeah,
well,
you're right. I mean, you would
mythosaur
think
itself.
that mythosaur is sort of the T-Rex, right? The apex predator of these creatures that are all over Mandalore. Yeah, it would have to be the boss, the boss of bosses.
So when the mythosaur does appear, we better get a strong sense of what makes it so special. Is it a magical thing going on? You know, they talk about the magical waters, the living waters and all that stuff. Or is it just going to be this ginormous creature, bigger than anything you've ever seen, bigger than the Zillo beast, huge.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, I just, with that rationale in mind, and knowing that these characters are motivated to at least experience a vision of the mythosaur, I just felt like this thing crashing the party sort of took the wind out of the sails of the eventual appearance of the mythosaur that we know will happen.
Right. And it could wreak havoc on that Gideon Imperial base. Who knows?
Right. That could be the end game for the base on Mandalore.
And then Thrawn comes.
Yeah.
And kills the mythosaur.
Well, here we go again.
A mythosaur, as I expected.
I was expecting to find a mythosaur here, just as I planned.
I tell you what, if he pulls that same crap, that same crap in this series as he did in Rebels, it's going to drive me crazy. I don't think they will. I think they'll make him hopefully more 3D. The Armorer takes the injured survivors back to the fleet. Jim, what do you think is the fate of that fleet? That's a big, I mean, Bo-Katan, she says, no, she knows when those TIE bombers and the TIE interceptors are released. What do you think? Are they sitting ducks? I mean, they've got some firepower up there.
Yeah,
they've got that
firepower.
Imperial, or they've got the destroyer.
I don't think, a few TIE fighters are going to take down that whole fleet. Let's see what the big deal is.
So.
No.
But wasn't it played in the episode as, oh, well, that's it. That's it for the fleet. It's over. He's like, release the TIE bombers, release the TIE interceptors. Yeah. And it was sort of played as though that was checkmate.
I didn't see Admiral Akbar freaking out in Return of the Jedi when he saw TIE interceptors. He just drove the fight right to them. So,
right.
Those things aren't going to take down capital ships. Well, a TIE bomber now, if you get a bunch of them above, I mean, they could cause some serious damage.
We saw in Rise of Skywalker what the bombers were able to do to those big Star Destroyers at the beginning.
The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi, right.
When in doubt, just say the sequels.
I should say
you saw in the sequels. That's how I do it.
The Imperial Commandos and that ambush, that was really something. Them using, Beskar, using their own weapon, their own armor against them. That was, I think, huge, very, very clever. I wasn't expecting to see that or hear that. And this, and then to hear Gideon actually give voice to what his end game is, which is the Jedi, the Mandalorians, and the clones, and sort of combining them to create the ultimate army. for galactic conquest. So this is when he shows his true colors. He's not interested in being one of the warlords. He's not interested in Thrawn. He's got his own game plan. So this is really leading up to, I think, Gideon v. Thrawn.
Now, his mention of Jedi, it's more than just ticking off a box. It's revealing to us that Moff Gideon is fully aware that Grogu lived at the Jedi Temple and trained as a Jedi Padawan. He's aware of that.
Yep.
He doesn't, refer to him as a Force user or anything. He says Jedi specifically. And Grogu, he doesn't talk. He doesn't wear Jedi robes. He does the hand thingy. But,
right.
just for the, by general observation, I would have never just called him a Jedi out of the blue without knowing. And we as fans didn't refer to Baby Yoda as a Jedi, not until there was information revealed to him, revealed to Ahsoka Tano when she was communicating with him in chapter 13. So there's Moff Gideon, and he has
his new duds,
his own Beskar, next gen Dark Trooper battle suit. And the best thing about it is I'm in it. That's what he says.
I love that. Man, oh man. I cannot say enough about Giancarlo Esposito.
Mm-hmm.
He is, he's one of those rare actors. Harrison Ford famously said, you can type this, but you can't say it. Giancarlo is one of those actors that can. Everything that guy says is convincing. And at the same time, I don't know how to describe it. He's in the universe, but you also see he has this playfulness about it. So he's not just playing like a stark raving madman. I don't get that sense. I don't think he's the twirling mustache, stereotypical villain. There's something else about this performance, and he's just so good at it. And I've been trying to figure out exactly what it is, but till I am able to articulate it better, I'll just say I dig it, I love it, and he's fantastic.
Yeah. He delivers all that dialogue with the greatest of confidence, and he's just a natural at delivering it in the same league as some of the all-time greats when it comes to delivering Star Wars dialogue. I'm thinking about, Ian McDiarmid, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm thinking about you could go all the way to Sir Alec Guinness. I mean, he delivered every one of his lines with great conviction and confidence.
Great example.
So I mean, and also Christopher Lee was somebody who could really deliver Star Wars dialogue in a way that just seemed natural coming from him. God bless Liam Neeson, but there were some times you could tell he'd be like, well, the midi-chlorians. Wait, George, what is a midi-chlorian? What? Oh, I got the mouth. Oh, I wasn't ready for this. Here we go. We're doing this live, folks. This has never happened before. It takes a little while to calibrate, I love you. All right. So I think we're ready to go. George, these midi-chlorians. I don't, what the hell do you have me saying here, man? I know you're from Northern California. You smoking the wacky tobacco they got up there, George? What? And he just said, they're just like the bacteria in your stomach, And then he left. All right, Swanky, you little bastard, turn me off.
All right. Well, as soon as you start talking about Liam trying to deliver some of that dialogue. All right. Yeah, the Dark Trooper suit forged from Beskar. That last play that he makes for the Dark Saber, as I said earlier, well, she surrendered it before. What does he have to lose by asking for it? And then he finally just says, kill them. Bo says, not this time. And then, of course, Paz. Oh, dear Paz, man. Oh, I should say Mando is taken away to be debriefed.
Yes.
You get a sad little gurgle from Baby Yoda there when he realizes that I thought that there was going to be a moment. Gosh, what's with the Trek references, man? But when
It's okay.
when Baby Yoda and Mando were separated by the glass, I thought there was going to be like a little hand-to-hand thing, you know, some sort of moment as they're being separated. There was no time for that. There's no time. No time.
Kind of cheesy, Jason. Just, you know, that's a little cheesy. What I did like about that moment, though, was Bo-Katan. She reveals, she goes, I should have killed you when I had the chance. Meaning, at that moment when she was surrendering, there was something in the back of her head saying, well, you know what, I'm going to be with Moff Gideon. I could wipe him out. Yeah. So
I
that
thought
was
she
a
was
possibility.
talking about at the end of season 2 when, you know, they were saying, now they were kind of saying like, oh, he needs to stand trial. We need to turn him over to the authorities. And, of course, you know, she was after him.
Yes. I kind of minimize her involvement in that whole raid on the Imperial cruiser because I sort of forget about it because the Dark Trooper showed up, Luke's freaking Skywalker. I don't care Bo-Katan standing around giving mercy. The Moff Gideon. I just felt like, you know, I thought that Gideon was valuable for the information he had. And so I believed that the New Republic would want to take him in. And with Cara Dune there serving as, like, was she ordained a marshal of the New Republic?
I feel like she was already carrying a badge at that point. Yeah, she had a badge.
She was, because remember, she in the previous episode, the penultimate episode of season 2, she sprung Bill Burr out of prison with her New Republic authority.
Right.
Yes, my authority. So she got him out of prison, and so she's definitely part of that. So with her there, I think the plan was then to take Moff Gideon into custody, which they did, and interrogate him and find out what's going on with this new Imperial threat. Yes. But I was thinking she was referring back to the time when she faced him one-on-one and surrendered her planet to the Empire. And I was thinking, well, maybe in the back of her head, she was thinking about killing him then. It could have been a win-lose situation, though, because she would win by killing him, but then she would have to sacrifice her own life. I'm sure Moff Gideon didn't show up, you know, by himself. I bet he had plenty of stormtroopers, and Bo-Katan was probably in a vulnerable situation at that point. She said it was the only thing she could do. She thought that was the only option, was to surrender to Moff Gideon. Very, very un-Mandalorian of her, by the way, I might add.
Sure. Well, she certainly lived to regret it, and then he used those words against her. If you remember, I feel like, you know, when Gideon was doing the rundown at you know, he did that with Cara Dune, he did it with Grief Karga, he did it with the Mandalorian. He was always like, Din Djarin of Concordia, you know, and he did a similar rundown with Bo at one point and kind of threw her failures, we'll say, as the leader of the Mandalorian people kind of in her face.
You bring up Concordia, that's the moon of Mandalore, and it's not mentioned in the show, but the descriptive audio track does reveal when the fleet arrives in the Mandalore orbit, you see a moon there, and the descriptive audio track says the moon of Concordia in the background. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like, wow, that'd be great to bring up on the show. But I'm like, there's probably only one moon of Mandalore, so what else would it be? But I looked it up online. I Googled how many moons does Mandalore have, and it said 2. And I couldn't find the name of the other moon, but who cares?
I'm sure it's in the chat within the
Concord
next 10
Dawn.
seconds.
Is Concord Dawn a place, or is that the other moon? That's what I'm guessing. It's that name suddenly popped into my head. Nobody's going to answer. They're just going to leave me here flailing.
They love it. They'll leave Mac hanging. All right. So Mando gets thrown to be debriefed, and sort of similar to what happened with Gideon at the end of season 2. He's going to be taken and probably softened up a little bit, and they're going to milk him for information. And Gideon's forces... question, and we're going to get to your calls here in just a second, and your super chats. What are the forces doing on Mandalore? What are they doing on the planet? Is it just, what's the significance? I guess he wants to mine the Beskar. He's creating those super soldiers, so that's why they're there. Yeah. And then the other question that I posed earlier is, which warlord do we want to put our money on prevails and is sort of the incubator for the First Order, or the person that will bring about the First Order? So let's go to the super chats. We got a lot of them. You guys have been super generous. We'll start with Dominic. Dominic says, theory time, Moff Gideon has horns on his helmet and denied being involved in cloning, but we know that's a lie. So who's he trying to clone? Darth Maul.
Did he have horns?
He had horns on that helmet. Yeah, he had horns on.
He did?
Yeah, absolutely. Here, let me get the picture back. Yeah, Gideon has horns on the helmet, which would put him more closely in relation to the armorer. See if we can get a better shot. But yeah,
and the Mandalorians.
Here it is.
Oh my God, he does have horns.
He's got horns. That's a horny helmet right there.
I'll be a son of a gun. Boy, I want this action figure, Hasbro. Chop, chop.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll get it in about 3 or 4 years, probably. So,
I want vintage.
Oh, you'll get that in 5 to 7 years. Thanks, Dominic. Appreciate it. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to a first-time caller or a Patreon member. We've got Nick from Alabama. Hey, Nick, you're on with Rebel Force Radio and the Mandalorian After Show.
Nick.
Chut, boys. How's it going?
Chut.
Shut.
So I wanted to talk to y'all. Y'all were talking about the issue of the spies with the title of the episode. You were trying to figure out the different who was a spy. But I have a different take. On my second time through, I saw a connection to, you know how George Lucas always, he pulled from Buddhism and Christianity for different elements. I think what they did here with the title of the spies, this episode has a very strong tie to the Hebrew, the book of Numbers in the Hebrew scripture, dealing with the Israelites that go in as spies. They have people from different tribes of Israel, and they go into their quote unquote promised land to spy out, and they see these gigantic giants, and they come back and they're scared and they retreat. And these guys, we're like grasshoppers in their size. So I'm thinking of, in the Mandalorian, this episode, you have the different tribes of Mandalorians that are going in there to retake their promised land. And you have these gigantic creatures, and they are like grasshoppers in comparison to them. So I think that's where that's coming from, the title of the spies.
Well, who are the gigantic creatures in this analogy?
Well, the gigantic creature in that you see in the Mandalorian, the gigantic creature, the Godzilla-looking thing that comes up.
Okay, so that indicates that who are the spies? The survivors?
Well, spies is used in the Hebrew scripture. They use spies as like the scouting party that goes out.
I see. Okay, so it's a slightly different definition to what we would consider spies. They're actually scouting. They're going out. They're looking for the promised land. Okay, all right, cool. I like that. That's a different take, and certainly could be what's motivating this, because we've heard from other people on the chat saying that, well, they wouldn't necessarily call it the spies without revealing who the spies are. And the only spy that we can conclusively say is Elia Kane. She's the only spy that we saw, or that we know of that we saw. But that's a very cool idea. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Nick.
Definitely be inspiration. Yeah.
And
definitely inspiration. Somebody answered me in the chat and said Concord Dawn is where Finn Rao is from, but that still doesn't answer my question. Is it a place, or is it a moon? What is another planet? What is it? I don't know.
It's a club.
A town.
Salby Crum says, loved seeing the Praetorian Guard in action tonight. I suddenly don't trust the armorer with the way she bailed out and the way that scene was shot. By the way, they fly now seems to be even more ridiculous after this
I
episode.
thought of that.
A lot of flying.
I thought of that. They're flying all over the place. You'd be surprised. That's just a J.J. Abrams joke he threw in there without any thought of history or chronology, canon.
It's a J.J. Abrams, throw it in there for laughs, or throw it in there to look cool, and it's just...
Yeah, look how clever I am. They fly now. They fly now. They fly now.
Calvin says, shut. Me just before the underground ambush. This could almost be the best episode yet if it had an emotional scene as good as Luke's arrival. Wow, this is the way. Yeah, this episode had me, it had me on the edge of my seat. I'll just say that. It had me on the edge of my seat.
I'm not sitting here like ranking the episodes or anything. I have my favorites. I know what I feel like works and what doesn't.
This is a top five for me. This episode.
This is one of the best of the best. No question about it. And I mean, also just its purpose of saving the season like it did, which I felt like was kind of going all over the place. This single episode did a hell of a lot to bring everything together, and that's what you want.
David says, Pelion. He even kind of sounded like the audiobook voice. And the armorer. Something's amiss. Boy, everybody seems to... Now, here's the question I have for you all. Other than tonight's episode, what in the hell is the armorer done that would make anybody think that she's anything than what she seems to be, which is a leader of great integrity and helping her clan? What else has this woman done that makes everyone just jump up? It's the armorer. She's the one. She's the traitor.
Well, it's the title, the vagueness of the title of this episode, I think really has people on guard, at high alert. Who are the spies? The spies, I mean, you named the title that.
Right.
So you're priming your audience to be looking at anyone and everyone with a suspicious eye, and I think the armorer's motivation, and also just the fact that gathering all the Mandalorians in one place just to line them up to be slaughtered by Moff Gideon, there's something that's almost too convenient about all of that, don't you think?
But who was really doing the lining up of all the pins? Let's go back to the phones. We've got Victoria. Victoria wants to chime in about the armorer. Hey, Victoria.
Hey, Victoria.
Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks for calling.
So, thank you. I'm a first-time caller. I just discovered you guys tonight. I really
ring the bell for you.
Thank you. I want to go back to the armor because, there really is no reason for me to have been suspicious of her the whole time, except the fact she has those gosh darn horns on her helmet.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't put that there for no reason. So I pegged her as a Maul loyalist from day one, and I'm sticking with it, and I think she's the other spy. I'll tell you why. Firstly, she was the last one to volunteer to go on the mission, and when she did, they kind of spotlighted the moment. They were walking really up to them, and the music changed a little bit. Okay, guys, this is important. It's important that she's coming. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that it was just too convenient that as soon as these other guys shows up, she's like, okay, I'm going to take them. They're injured. And they almost were resistant at first. Well, maybe I'm misremembering, but I feel like she kind of had to push it a little bit to get out of there. And
there was a weird, no, you know what though? I will say, Victoria, real quick, there was a weird, she didn't have to convince, but there was a weird little moment between her and Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan just looked at her and was
right, okay, yeah.
Of course. I think that was the way she gave the nod, as Jimmy Meg pointed out. But anyway, sorry to derail derail. Continue, please.
No, it's okay. Yeah, no. So I think the reason why she set all of this in motion in the first place, telling Bo, okay, take your helmet off and then go get these other guys is because I really think she is like so into her cultist beliefs that she doesn't want a united Mandalore. She wanted to find all the other factions of Mandalorians who don't follow the way, and she wanted to set them up to be all in one place and then be annihilated.
Wipe them
and
out.
I also think that
all of them.
Yeah,
That's
right.
great. I love that. I love that. Yes, manipulation.
Yeah, I mean, to think about it, like it is. It's really cold, but I think it makes sense for her character because, you know, she's kind of like going back to Book of Boba Fett, like just, you know, when Din had to admit to her what he'd done, you know, taking the helmet off. Like she was just so stone cold about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she didn't get furious like Paz Vizsla did, but she was like, her whole demeanor towards Din kind of changed in that moment. And my personal feeling is she also offered Din to Gideon as a sacrificial lamb. Like she knew he was going to take him and she didn't care because I think the fact that he took off his helmet for Grogu, she sees that as a threat. So she's like, all right, well, to hell with you then.
He's sacrilegious and he needs to be removed.
Your
this
your
stuff is
theory
wild.
about her being so extreme in her beliefs and such a fundamentalist that she would be even willing to sacrifice those who are most loyal to her, namely Paz Vizsla, for the greater good in her mind of getting rid of Bo-Katan and the majority of those others that have always been out there and sort of this distant threat to her being the ultimate ruler or say. So it's almost like it's not about her as an individual. It's about the way in the creed.
Right. Like I think it was Boba Fett when she was talking about how way is what saved us and, you know, everybody else because they fell away, you know, they were all annihilated. She almost sounded happy about it to me. You know, maybe that's just my impression, but it was almost like she was being very smug. Like she felt like, you know, like in accordance with her like personal beliefs, like, oh, well, this was justice. It was justice that because they fell away, they got what was coming to them. And because we held to the way that, you know, we were spared. And so she might see herself as kind of like, I hate to use this term, but like the hand of God, like, you know, like kind of forcing the situation here. You know,
I think there's a lot of religious overtones to this, you know, this mythology they're laying out. I think there's a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh yeah,
yes,
no, definitely. I just mean like, you know, in her case, I think they kind of towed the line with like not really going all the way with, you know, is she like so extreme as she's manipulating this to be a bad thing, or, you know, sometimes it seems like, oh, maybe there's some good about it. You know, I think they're very fair in how they deal with it. They're not trying to necessarily say like, well, oh, everybody who believes in this is just a nut job. You know, they're being very multi-layered, you know, like you understand why Din believes in this. You know, you can even understand why people like Paz Vizsla believes in it. But the Armorer, we really just don't know. You know, she's such a mysterious figure. We have, you know, like with Paz Vizsla, just his name, we know what his lineage is. We get why he's tied to this. And we have Din's backstory, basically. He's a foundling. But the Armorer, we have no name.
She's a blank slate.
No lineage. We don't know how she got to be. Exactly. The only thing we know is, I'm going to go back to it, it's those horns on the helmet. So I'm sticking with it. She's shady AF.
It's awesome.
Shady AF.
Awesome, Victoria. Great theory. Tyler's putting the call notes. He's like, she has a great theory about the Armorer. And no, you didn't disappoint. Something else too about Armorer, Jim, that might be a clue is the way she turned around on the Mythosaur sighting. Could, at first she just wanted to sort of downplay it. Maybe she knows that the Mythosaur is real or was real at one time, but Bo being the one to have seen it, Bo being the one to know, Din didn't bring it up to the Armorer. So it's probably, so she knows then that Din doesn't know anything about the Mythosaur. Otherwise, he's a lot closer to her. He would have been the one to mention it to her. He's her spiritual, she's his spiritual leader. But it was Bo-Katan. Can the armorer, who's the curator of the way, can she risk Bo-Katan and those heretics out there being the ones to ride in on a mythosaur and become the true rulers of Mandalore? Maybe that's the motivation.
If that happens, everyone's going to be taking their helmets off. God forbid. Yeah, she has to do something about it. I mean, this one's got the Darksaber. That one's riding the mythosaur. I don't like the potential of all of this rocking my fundamentally zealot outlook on this, and it'll strip away all my followers. Yeah, maybe she's that self-centered. Maybe I mean we've known that religions can definitely breed conflict within itself and with other religions. So, I think we're seeing more allegory going on here in The Mandalorian, setting us up for a cautionary tale. And boy, oh boy, we're really paranoid about everything with the title being The Spies. I mean, we're jumping in shadows here. It's fun. But
it's the shadow conspiracy. The shadow council.
I mean, it's got us looking at all kind of different things. Moff Gideon, he's trying to manipulate the Shadow Council. He could be potentially manipulating this whole situation with the Mandalorians. The armor, she wants to get all of the Mandalorians united. And I mean, while it makes sense on paper for the armor, maybe she does have more evil ideas about getting them all together to clean the slate and open the door for her to lead whatever survivors are left into the future, all with their helmets on. And, as children of the Watch, she obviously prioritizes the way and the creed and all. I mean, more than anything else, more than any relationships. So, she's so quick to cast aside anyone who steps outside the boundaries of her religion that, the idea of trying to wipe out anyone who stands against her way of being a Mandalorian might be the evil end game for her before it's all said and done.
Maybe. Tom from Elgin, Illinois calling in. Hey, Tom.
Tommy.
Greetings, exalted ones.
Oh, well, that's very nice. You may merely call me Lord.
So I'm also a Deadhead and a Star Wars fan. I just wanted to bring up the point that we actually got to see a light cruiser and or a Star Destroyer land on a planet for the first time tonight. You never see those big Imperial ships actually land. You only see them hover, and you actually get to see them land on a planet tonight. And also, I think that we don't have a good name for our fans, like a Deadhead or like a Trekkie or stuff like that. As a thing from Bobo from Howard Stern. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are I'm also a Star Wars fan and a Deadhead, and I've seen Imperial light cruisers actually land at concerts. But that was just me seeing that, I think, at the end of the night. Might have something to do with something, I don't know. But I'm sure I'll see you at the show.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
I don't ever recall seeing one actually touch down and land before. I did take note of the visual. I thought it was outstanding when they with the gauntlet ships coming in and landing and everything. I thought it was a fantastic visual. And the thought did cross my mind. Have we ever seen a cruiser like this actually touch? We've seen them parked on planets, but have we ever seen it actually touch down? I can't recall. Not in live action. Not in live action.
Hey, Carlos. Carlos says, Chut boyos, can't stick around. Movie date with my little girl. Oh, well, that obviously takes precedence. He says, but damn, what an episode. Also, Daddy Hux looks thinner than I imagined. Hashtag yes, 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 yes.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Carlos. Appreciate it, buddy. And I hope you had a great time with your little girl. You don't get those years back, so definitely take advantage of them when you can. John says, love this episode, but I still don't understand why Mando doesn't have his staff with him anymore. And my heart goes out to Paz Vizsla, R.I.P. Paz Vizsla. Jim, wasn't the staff, didn't that go up with the Razor Crest?
No. He's clearly, it's the only thing that survived the destruction of the Razor Crest, and they make a note of showing Mando picking through the ashes and pulling the spear up out.
That was so long
And I think the
ago
only
now.
other thing that survived is that little knobby thing that,
right.
Grogu plays with. Where is the spear? I think the spear may have been left behind during the battle. No, he had it. He did have that spear. What did he do with that spear? Maybe there's just no place to put it on the N1 Starfighter.
It's a tight
maybe
squeeze.
Maybe it's on the N1 Starfighter. Where is the N1 Starfighter? Where did he park that? Where did he? That must still be on Navarro, right? Because then he flew with Bo.
I haven't seen it since he started playing
Wazir.
with the since he got the Darksaber. Has he used the staff in battle?
I seem to recall him having he battled Moff Gideon with this.
Oh yeah,
That's
he
how
did. He had
defeated
both, right?
Right. And so I think he like slid it into his backpack.
It
like
probably
he does.
slid out. You know, he might have had a hole in that.
I know. I know exactly where it is. I'm never gonna get that thing back. No, I'm not gonna call Lost and Found. They never find anything. You know how that is. I'm sure like the overnight cleaning crew took it for themselves.
Of course they
These
do.
are things I say
Clean
to
up.
myself every time I leave something behind at the health club.
Here's another John. John says, my 10-year-old bawled when Paz was in his death throes. We finally got real stakes. Also, I can't believe Din didn't use the whistling birds. Awesome. Well, he didn't use his staff either. Yeah, the Paz's death was pretty brutal. I mean, for something that didn't have a lot of blood and gore, which we wouldn't expect from Star Wars. But man, oh man, did those Praetorian guards just slice him and dice him. Jim, some in the chat were saying, why didn't he use his jetpack to get away from him? And
it was smoking. I think it took too much damage and was non-functional, because I was wondering the same thing myself. And I saw sparks and smokes, and I even think I saw a few blaster bolts smack him in the back. And why he was bawling when poor kid. I just want to give the kid a hug and buy him an action figure or something, you know.
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, they got him in the chest, they got him right in the back of the neck. I mean, I actually was looking at this scene and thinking, oh, we're gonna get a decapitation. They're gonna it's gonna be like right out of when we saw Django's helmet roll right off his shoulders. That's what I thought we were leading up to. But these Praetorian guards, my goodness, they certainly showed what they're made of here. They didn't always in the sequel films, but they did here. Let's go back to the phones. We got Marty from Georgia. Marty's a Patreon member. Thank you, Marty.
Hey, chut-chut, fellas.
Hey, chut-chut.
Hey, Marty.
What a hell of a whiplash from last week's episode where you get Jack Black and Lizzo, and then, Paz is dead.
Yeah, try
Gideon's
watching
back,
those back to back, man. I watched them. I was like, what is going on?
And then you got the Shadow Council. Holy crap, that was a heck of a ride. I remember just leaning forward, watching it with my buddy. I'm like, who's on that council? Who do I recognize? And I mean, the big one was Pelion. That was the coolest one for me. But this is the thing I kind of noticed, and this goes back to what you guys are talking about, how they're talking, when are we going to reveal ourselves? And it just reminds me, and this was a conversation we had back when it was the Dr. Pershing episode, about how it's all just kind of cyclical. It's all a cycle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You have the good guys are in charge and the bad guys are planning to take over. You had the same thing with the Separatists against the Republic and the Rebels against the Empire. And then now we're seeing it with the Imperial Remnant against the New Republic. And it's fascinating to me how much it mirrors real life, how things in history are just very cyclical. So that's just something I've kind of enjoyed, is seeing how this fits into the whole big picture of Star Wars. It's just, it's all a big cycle. So very good episode. excited to see. I really want to throw on cameo, at least to see him at least show up in a hologram or something. That's my big prediction that I really am hoping for.
It very well may be, Marty. It may be why we got the Thrawn announcement at Celebration, because they knew that he was going to show up in that season finale, and because otherwise, I guess it makes sense to have him. But if he shows up, I don't think he's going to be at the beginning of the Ahsoka series. That's my thing. I think that he's going to show up later, so that would be a bit of a spoiler for the Ahsoka series. So the fact that we got him at Celebration, he was on the Ahsoka panel, it very well could be that we're getting. Some people are saying maybe a post-credits sequence or something like that like we got with running into the Book of Boba Fett. Maybe there's a post-credits sequence at the end of next week's episode rolling us into Ahsoka. Possible.
Well, I'll bet on that post-credit sequence next week. I'll bet on it.
Okay. I'm not going to take that bet. I already lost $50 to DeSanto.
Just the other.
Go ahead.
Just the other one selfish thing I wanted to say. I'm so happy I did not have to follow up with Blake. I got a buddy who listens to the show who says, "Wow, your shares suck compared to Blake." I'm like, yeah, thanks. So,
Blake called the IG-11 becoming the Krang body for Grogu.
He did.
That's incredible. It's incredible. Watch we find out that
that was
Blake's name is Blake Favreau, and John Favreau's been punking us this whole time. He's like, I got an idea. Tell him that. He's feeding him all these theories. It's great. Or it's Blake Famuyiwa.
Yeah.
I don't know. But thanks, Marty. Appreciate the call. Let's go with Ben from Pennsylvania, also a Patreon member. Hello, Ben.
Ben!
Hello, guys.
Hey.
Maniacs in the house.
What's that?
So, I said it's good to have some Mando Maniacs in the house. I haven't heard that one in a while.
Mando
throwing
Maniacs.
it out there.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah. So, this episode, I was really fat and satisfied this episode. There was so much meat on the bone, especially compared to last week, like you guys were saying. Whole Whiplash thing.
Yeah.
Love the Shadow Council. So, Swank, I got to ask you, you were kind of opposed, it sounded like, to Thrawn even showing up in this series and saying there were no breadcrumbs. And now we got how many mentions? Like 3 name drops. So, with all due respect, put that in.
They did it all in one episode, man. I mean, if I had to be, if I were forced to be critical of The Mandalorian, the pacing is all over the place with this season. All over the place.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not going to make any apologies for the fact that they waited until the, penultimate episode to give us those breadcrumbs about Thrawn. I was surprised. You know, it's funny what the Celebration coverage did. It's not that it numbed me to the Thrawn, but it sort of refamiliarized me with the idea that Thrawn's showing up. So when his name was dropped in this series, I didn't freak out. It was cool, but I didn't freak out because it's like, oh yeah, Lars Mikkelsen. Yeah, he's going to be showing up. He's going to be all painted blue with the red eyes and all that stuff. So, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, but up to this point, you didn't have anything.
Yeah, I'm just busting your.
I know, and I appreciate it. So I hear you have some nits to pick. Yeah. What are those nits?
Oh, just one. I mean, honestly, I could tear the other one apart. We don't even need to go into last week's, but this one, the only thing, and it might sound really stupid, but why didn't Bo-Katan cut a bigger hole for the Mandalorians to escape through?
It's not that easy.
Because they were all like crouched and they had to take their time to get through it. Like, why didn't you just cut it like a person-sized hole and they could have just ran through it? I don't know.
Right. Maybe it's because of all those blaster bolts flying at their heads. She ducked down low to create a place for them to get away.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll give you that.
That's my guess.
I think she should have actually
self-preservation.
I think she should have cut a shape like a chalk drawing when a body's on the ground like this, and that everybody would have to have gone right through the, what was that? There was a TV show like Ninja Warrior or something like that, or no, what was it? No, it wasn't.
I was
that.
watching
Were
that
they-
sequence closely to see
American-
how IG-12 with Grogu in there went down, like crouched down to get through, but they never showed it. They only just showed the droid's legs as he was on the other side.
Oh,
of
I
the hole,
wondered how
walking away.
Grogu was going to get through in
Yeah.
that. With that.
I had to rewind to make sure that he got through that hole as well, and they did represent it, but just not, it was like we saw it right after it happened.
Right. Anything else, Ben?
All right, I do have one theory.
Yes, throw it out.
I do have one theory. When the Shadow Collective is talking about, is Thrawn actually going to show up? And Gideon's like, well, maybe we should look to new leadership. I think that's a subliminal message. I think Kathleen Kennedy is going to get the boot, and I nominate Blake to take the place.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Great call.
I'm sure there are several YouTubers running with that theory right now, as if it is honest to God fact. Yeah. I don't think so, but I'm not going to expand on that.
All right. John with the super chat drops by saying Moff Gideon shaved his mustache because oxygen masks won't seal around facial hair. Couldn't get a good seal on his new helmet. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But even Din Djarin, when he took his helmet off, he had a bit of beard stubble there, if I remember correctly.
Pretty stubbly.
So,
Pretty stubbly.
Some of them have beards. I mean,
you know what? I'm really upset that we never got to see Paz Vizsla's helmet removed to get that Jon Favreau cameo.
What is he to see, or the little head? But
right, the little helmet.
So he passes away and doesn't remove the helmet. So that destroys the ridiculous notion that had been perpetrated online about Favreau no longer voicing Paz. So when the character removes his helmet, it'll be the face and voice of actor Tate Fletcher, the Paz physical actor. The way that thing spread around the internet without any sort of verification or confirmation, it was just because somebody was reading the credits incorrectly and spread it on Screen Rant, and then a bunch of others who just accept whatever they see ran with it. And there's a lot of incorrect stuff on the internet, but just open your ears. That's Jon Favreau. Why would the creator of the show pass off his role to anyone? It makes no sense. And that's the voice of Jon Favreau. It's not the voice of Tate Fletcher. It never has been. It never will be. And John voiced the character from beginning to bitter end. R.I.P. Paz.
Mitchell and Katie Sparks write, Gideon calls it Beskar alloy. An alloy is a mixture of metals. He may not have perfected forging true Beskar. So maybe it's not quite as good as the real stuff.
Well, that's a good specification to be aware of. They throw a lot of terminology at us. I don't know how this stuff gets forged and mixed down, but right, alloy, yeah, it's a mixture.
We got a guy named Chris says, thank you, Jimmy and Jason. On my most down days, you guys bring me light. Love the show and love you both. Well, thanks, Chris. I'll
give you the Mandalorian salute. Just how they do that?
Yeah, that's what they do.
That's what you get.
Oh, that's very kind. That's
also, I really enjoyed the forearm handshake with Grief Karga and Din. It was much more obvious and visible in this episode where they just grasp each other by the forearms. And isn't that a handshake that Carl Weathers applied in something else, like the Predator movie or something?
No, I thought, I was conflating images. They do a standard kind of shake, but they do it in that arm wrestling pose. And they start jockeying. It wasn't a thing, but that I don't know if that's a Mandalorian. Is that a Mandalorian handshake? That with the forearms, but Salary Cum says, just watch The Rise of Skywalker. Babu Frik scene. He has a mustache too.
I thought he had facial hair.
It's Max high-end collectible doesn't have it. So
where is that thing? What I do with that thing? It's so big. Here it is. There it is. Hey. Yeah, he has no facial hair right here. But I remember him having facial.
Look at Hasbro cheaping out.
Facial hair on the show.
Hasbro cheaping out, not giving you the movie accurate Babu Frik with the facial hair. It's terrible.
Yeah, we got it on clearance.
Here's Jeff. Jeff says, I don't think they'd call an episode The Spies without revealing them by the end. Yeah, this was the one I was thinking of earlier. Without revealing them by the end. I think the whole scouting party are the spies. They were scouting on the planet for their return. That's a great thought, Jeff. We had the caller that was using that definition of spy as scouts earlier. So thanks, Jeff, for always being here on these live shows and being such a active member of the chat. We've got Tubular Tommy says, did the writers forget Grogu has force powers?
Yeah, right. Well, I think his mastery of the controls for IG-12 is probably based somewhere within his force powers. That's how he's able to do it so fast and everything. But yeah, you're right. He's not displaying them too often. And, it's probably because it gives him the sleepies every time he uses it. He needs to take a little nappy nap.
Yes. So he's got to really be sure.
Yeah. He can't be like, motoring down the street with IG-12 and then just use the force randomly and then fall asleep at the wheel.
That's a whole new cautionary tale for Grogu. Can't sleep
There's
and
many
drive,
of them
kids.
in this episode. Yeah.
We got a first-time caller. This is Scott from North Carolina joining us. Hey, Scott, thanks for calling. Hey, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, guys.
Hey, of course.
Shut, Star Wars fans.
Shut, buddy.
Hey,
yeah, so I don't know if you see the notes of what I wanted to mention, but I feel like the end with Paz's death, I feel like it was actually kind of cheap. The more I think about it, I feel like Moff should have offed him to give us a reason to actually hate Moff, because right now Moff hasn't really done a whole lot to anybody.
Other than torture sweet baby Yoda. What do you mean? I mean, Moff Gideon was the one that was responsible for that.
He had him locked up. He wasn't torturing him. But yeah, I mean,
are you a Moff Gideon
really,
defender?
We don't really know. He's just trying to keep the law and order in this crazy galaxy.
I will say this: Dr. Pershing admitted that those experiments he was doing on Baby Yoda did bring a certain level of pain to the subject, and he said most of them don't survive these experiments. So while it may not be torture in the traditional sense, I think that our sweet little Baby Yoda took his knocks and bruises while in the custody of the Empire.
I love that we got an apologist.
We didn't see a whole lot. Yeah, but no, I do have a prediction for next week. I don't know if y'all saw that.
No, go for it.
So I feel like Moff released the bombers and the fighters to go attack the fleet.
Yep.
And the other Mandalorians, they're all stuck underground right now because of the beast outside. They fled underground because of the beast outside. And I told Tyler, I said, I think where this may lead us is somehow Bo and the group getting to the living water somehow, and Bo basically riding the mythosaur up and out to help protect the fleet at the end. And I think that could be a big end reveal and everybody going crazy over that next week.
Scott, thank you for connecting the creature to the situation better for me. The creature is still out there, and that is why they can't leave, or why it's going to be difficult for them to leave. I that is something I hadn't considered. I think that's a really smart observation. Now, are they going to blow the mythosaur on season 3 on the finale?
Oh, thank God you continued that sentence. Yikes!
Are they?
Yikes!
Are they gonna blow it out on at the end of season 3, or are they gonna keep that as a carrot and an idea that they're gonna dangle in front of us for a little while longer? Scott, you seem to think that this is it.
Yeah, I just don't know.
I do too.
Yeah, I don't know how they get back to the fleet to do anything. If it's not the mythosaur, then does Ezra come out of space on Willie, and then he comes down and frees everybody.
Oh God, no!
I don't know. I mean, we have that nugget too from the beginning. They were in hyperspace.
Yeah,
we saw saw them traveling in hyperspace, and Grogu saw them as Din was taking a nap.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So,
I think that's a bridge too far.
Who saves the fleet?
Who saves the fleet? Well, it depends. I don't know, because now I have a problem with trusting Bo-Katan. Everybody's a suspect here. Thanks to Mac and all his paranoid theories. He's got me looking at everybody now.
Hey, it was the title of the episode. The
right.
Filmmakers knew exactly what they were doing to us audience members going into this. They knew we'd be pointing a finger at everyone.
Yeah, it's like that Spider-Man meme where you got the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other. Well, thanks very much, Scott, for the call. It was a great call. We're going to take one more here. This is a first-time caller. Let's get him in. This is Yanni from Florida. Hello, Yanni. You're the last caller. No pressure, buddy.
Yanni.
Oh, wow. Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you made it.
Hello? Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I was just calling about the Shadow Council. I was just thinking about how it fits in with like what we know already about the First Order and like how they start, and then even specifically like how you guys think Palpatine fits into it, because I think he's probably directing the whole thing, but they have no idea yet. Because it seems like in The Rise of Skywalker that it's like a big surprise that he comes out of nowhere. So he certainly was like behind Snoke, and maybe Hux is he has Hux like making Snoke, but Hux doesn't know that it's Palpatine is alive and he's directing everything, and as far as them making Snoke and all that. And then from the books and stuff, whether they keep that straight or whatever, but it's like Palpatine has Operation Cinder and like culls the Empire, and there's only like a little bit of them left, and then he sets up the whole Battle of Jakku to try and actually destroy the rest of the rebellion at that time, but it doesn't work, and it kind of destroys the Empire even more, and then the rest of them go into the unknown regions, and then they come back to First Order, and that's like all we know so far, but now it seems like there's this big remnant still left in the galaxy, but we know Palpatine's behind the whole thing.
Yeah,
so it's like
your question about where is... Yeah, I mean, where is Palpatine throughout this, and just how much is he in control of the situation? I think it's a really great question. My guess is that he's on Exegol. My guess is that what was left of his physical body is probably in some sort of stasis. I don't see how he could have. I mean, I guess if we want to get real mystical and all of that. But for the sake of live action Star Wars, what's that?
I would say if he's like as good as he is, as far as like hanging from that train and as like alive as he is, in Episode 9, as he is like right now, like let's say like.
Well, I think what we see in Episode 9, I think what we see on Episode 9 is a failed clone. I think that's a clone body that is deteriorating because it cannot handle the power of Palpatine's spirit.
Right.
But there's got to be something left of Palpatine physically on Exegol, I think, while they're trying to create a body that is going to be able to house him. I would think there'd have to be something there. What is he, in a jar? Like there's some like glowing thing in a jar, and that's Palpatine's spirit. I just
hope he's behind the whole thing.
I think he has to be. A lot of it.
Still, yeah.
A lot of it, but some of it is the contingency plan. I think some of this is a contingency plan that they enacted once he was gone.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's already been established in many different stories and other media that there was a plan in place. I can't remember the name of it. Operation Cinder? No, I don't remember the name. But the caller brings up an interesting point. He brought up the Battle of Jakku. Do you think that maybe the Battle of Jakku could be the big grand finale of the Filoni film. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Oh, wow.
The final defeat of the Empire before they went completely underground and restructured itself as the First Order. The final battle was
do we have wait a minute, do we have a date for the Battle of Jakku relative to where we're at in the timeline?
Time period. It was like 5 or 10 years after
It was that far after.
Yeah,
I think the last stand of the Empire, the Battle of Jakku. I thought it was, within around the same time as the Battle of Endor or shortly thereafter. But I don't know.
5 years after the Battle of Yavin. 5 years.
So that would put it around the same time as Endor.
Yeah, I guess so.
I
guess. Oh, it says right here. How long was the Battle of Jakku after Return of the Jedi? Exactly 1 year and 4 days. Boy, they got this locked down.
They got it down.
No, yeah, we're not going to be seeing any Battle of Jakku, but I would love to see it in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it'll be presented as a flashback. I don't know.
Chris Kostick says, if the show is this epic, just wait till the movie. Yeah, Chris, just wait till the movie. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Chris also says, what reinforcements was Axe getting? They brought one ship to the surface and all communications were blocked. What did I miss? Did they leave more Mandos at the ship? Spy? Who knows? What reinforcements was Axe getting?
Reinforcements? Boy, I don't even know the specific nature of this question. Did Axe say, I'm getting reinforcements? Did he say that?
I don't know. I watched the episode Chris. Twice and I wasn't.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. So, Chris, if you got it. Yeah. Tyler, do you know? Do you know what he's referring to? Tyler's saying no.
Anybody in the chat?
Well,
sorry,
thanks,
Chris. We're obviously missing a detail that you caught and we didn't, but we'll see next week.
Here's Chris Hansford. Does anyone else think that there's the possibility that Din and Bo make some more Mandalorians? The old-fashioned way?
Well, that's an interesting point because I believe that the Night Owl Mandalorians that Bo runs with, I believe they're down with having relationships with each other and stuff. I think the Children of the Watch are just so devoted to the way in the creed and following the creed that they never remove their armor as well as their helmets, unless nature calls, of course. But I mean, to get intimate, I don't think that's how the Children of the Watch do it. I think that they keep their civilization, they're part of the Mandalorian civilization alive by looking for orphans, foundlings. That's what keeps their whole thing going. It's not about families when it comes to the Children of the Watch. It's about being part of the creed, being, this is the way, all that stuff. Whereas, Mandalorians, they differ in many ways. There's houses, families, all kind of things. So I just think when it comes to the Children of the Watch, which Din is a card-carrying member, I don't think he's bumping nasties with anybody, Mandalorian or otherwise.
Hard to do in that helmet. Rich Brendel, old friend of ours here, says with a super chat, put this in the Bring Jason to Chicago fund. Well, thanks, Rich. That'll get me to Indiana, maybe, that $10. Appreciate it, buddy. I'll be there, I promise. But got sick the last time. What are you shaking your head for, Mac?
I don't believe it. I don't think you'll ever make it out here, even if you want to.
Probably ever again. Never
again. Yeah.
Ever again. Hey, Tyler. Thanks, buddy. We're almost done. Mandalorian season 3. I don't want it to end, and I certainly don't want our live streams to end. We've got plans so that they don't. But anything that we might have missed, I think between Mac, myself, and our amazing roster of callers and super chats, we covered it all.
I don't know about all of it, but I have to comment on the beard because
I mentioned the beard that the Imperial had in Andor, and this time we had full-on beards for our Imperial Remnant warlords, which I think is the first time we've had an actual full beard. But
Imperial beards.
That's just like a side thing. I don't know. It's one of those things that you notice.
When you're part of the bearded club, as you are.
Yeah, I think the beards have more to do with being warlords than Imperials, but I grant you, it's a good observation.
Two points of clarification too.
I mean, look at that beard right there. Look at this guy. That's a beard.
He needs Moff Gideon's Beskar razor to work that over a little bit.
Cuts through all of it.
Yeah.
That Beskar spear, I think the chat was going crazy, but it got melted down into armor for Baby Grogu. Baby Yoda.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're absolutely right. This is the way.
And then I think Blake may have prophesied that IG-11 was going to become like the unit of movement for Baby Yoda, but I know that Eric from Nashville also did it in a super chat back in episode 18. So I just want to give a shout out.
How do you remember this? Of course, you do screen the calls, and you are the official program observer. So
that's what I do.
Awesome, Tyler.
Great observations, Tyler. Thank you so much for making sure we get the cream of the crop when it comes to Star Wars fans, and that's anyone and everyone who listens to Rebel Force Radio and calls into this show. We love you all, and we love you, Tyler. And, man, one more week. That's all we got. Just one more week. We have to wait, like 2 or 3 years for the next season? Yikes.
I hope not. We know we won't have to wait that long for Ahsoka, and I think that Ahsoka is going to be sort of a proxy season 4 or maybe a season 3.5 to Mando.
There'll probably be tie-ins with Skeleton Crew as well.
Yeah, very
it's
well
all
made.
part of that Favreau Mando verse.
Very well made. All right, Jimmy Mack, the penultimate episode, and your final thoughts. Go.
Oh, my God. Putting the ultimate in penultimate. That's what this show did. Final thoughts. So I have final thoughts, man. I feel like we really did a good job of completely draining all sort of analysis and observation out of me. But I might have a couple things left over here. The death of Paz, I'm sorry. I love seeing his blaster overheat. That just intensified the situation so much. It's like, wow, he's putting everything into it to buy those escaping Mandalorians time. I thought that was awesome. This whole episode was awesome. One of the best of the best. What a difference a week makes, you guys thought I'd be complaining. What's going on Plaisir 15? What's the Duchess thinking about this week? No, I wasn't thinking that at all. Who was thinking that? Nobody was thinking that. This is solid. About as Star Warsy as it can get, too, on top of it all. Saved the season. It really did save the season. R.I.P. Pax, we'll miss you in your little head. Hey, Internet. It's been the voice of Favreau all along, from beginning to end. Game over. What else do I got? Anything? Not really. Just looking forward to next week so much. And looking forward to maybe some richer moments with Bo, where she really does, dig deep beneath the surface about who she is, what makes her tick, and what she's going to do with her newfound responsibility of leading the Mandalorians into the future on their own planet. With the way this season has been going, I don't believe we'll get anything but a total success for the Mandalorians as they face off against the Imperial Remnant on next week's episode. But somebody who will not be anywhere near the action is Cara Dune, not in this episode.
Oh, look at that. Baby Yoda holding Baby Yoda merch. How meta.
It's meta,
thanks,
mental.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging with us. Also, a big thanks to our sponsor this week, Factor Meals. Head over to factormeals.com/Rebel RFR50 and use code RFR50 to get 50% off your first box. That's code RFR50 at factorymeals.com/RFR50. Get 50% off your first box. Also, big thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. You heard from many of them tonight during this after show, but you too can jump to the head of the line and make sure that your calls get added to the show each and every time. I was going to say each and every week, but that's coming through an end here. Each and every time we do one of these live streams, go to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. Sign up today. Find the membership tier that fits your budget. You can go to and get weekly full show video, exclusive podcasts you can't get anywhere else, and hang out with a great community of Star Wars fans. Also, please watch us and like us and comment on our YouTube channel. That's the exclusive home to all of our live streams, so make sure that you, if you do rewatch them and you go, well, I chatted with the guys during the live stream, well, leave a comment, because the chat goes away. Once the show publishes, the chat goes away after it's no longer live, so we would love to have those comments. It helps, the algorithms, as they say. So please give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment. The website for all things and everything Rebel Force Radio is rebelforceradio.com. You can find us on our socials. Mac, you look very confused right now.
Well, because I don't think the chat goes away. I recall looking at the chat well after we had signed off, and in retrospect.
Yeah, but if they don't, YouTube doesn't count that as a comment. It's not the same thing as a comment.
I see
Comments
what
are
you're
afterwards.
saying. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm easily
I
confused.
recognize the confused look that he was giving. I'm not sure.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. In appreciation, I will give you an appreciative nod.
Oh, well, thank
There
you
you go.
for that. In addition to these live streams and these after shows, we also have a podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it. We're one of the longest running and certainly the most listened to Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. So check it all out, rebelforceradio.com. We love to have those subscriptions. Please leave us a review. Just one rule, please.
Make them good.
And we will be back next Wednesday, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern, for our recap. Our recap of the season finale of The Mandalorian, the final season. Final episode of the season. It's late, guys. But until then, thanks to Tyler. Thanks to our sponsor. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mac.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
See ya.